Hey guys, thank you for checking out Bucked Up. Just before we start, I would love if you'd hit the subscribe button, share the video. We have new episodes coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And starting in the new year, check out Wrapped Up exclusively on Vivo. This episode is sponsored by Exotic Roots Hydro, which I have to give a huge shout out to. They are a huge supporter of the podcast, and I'm really happy to be working with them. If you're ever in Rochester, New York, and you need to learn about any of your hydroponic needs, go to their shop. You can follow them at Exotic Roots Hydro on Instagram. Shout out their whole team. They have an amazing venue space. They're going to be putting on tons of events. Just make sure to follow Exotic Roots Hydro on Instagram. And if you're ever in Rochester, definitely stop by. Let's get back into it.
It was at this moment that he knew.
He bucked up.
Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you have fucked up.
How did you get into starting shows? I guess is where I would.
I went to school, I'm from Southern New Hampshire. I'm born and raised in New England, but, Northern Mass.
Where in
Southern
New Hampshire?
A small little town called Sandown.
Okay.
So
I lived in Pepperell, Mass, right on the Nashua border for some time. So
yeah, I'm a little more east. More east. I grew up in just Georgetown, Massachusetts, which is next to Haverhill, Mass. It's Essex County, more northern Massachusetts, and then moved to southern New Hampshire when I was around 12. Went to school out there, but then after I graduated community college out there, I went to Northeastern, Boston, and ended up, that's why I went to school for music industry, got my internship for Metro Concepts, and Metro Concepts was a guerrilla marketing company at the time that was throwing concerts, and mostly at the Middle East. A lot of classic Middle East concerts that they put on there with like Def Jux, LP, every underground, booking a lot of the underground hip hop shows at the time. Managing artists, Mr. Liff, Acrobatic, Edo G, street teaming, putting up flyers, hitting all the colleges, hitting all those retail locations that were around at the time. I was one of those street team kids hitting out shows at let outs, boom, 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 boom. So I kind of saw how that was going on. And with the music industry crashing, downloading starts to take over. There's not much music industry jobs. Concerts seemed like a sure bet at the time. So I started throwing my first concerts at the Middle East, in 2004, well, it was my senior year, my last year, I shouldn't say senior year because I was in college for a while, but my last year in college, I started throwing shows and then just went full time right after that. Boom.
Wow, so your first shows were at the Middle East, because I know people listening aren't really from Massachusetts, but that's where I've seen a lot of your shows,
My first big show, I will say my first couple of shows were at All Asia. And then I don't know if you know that club venue.
No, I don't.
There was a little Chinese restaurant. Stage was in the corner. There was one of those bars that was in the middle of the room. Not ideal for live music. And that was where, it was a terrible sound system, but that's where everybody kind of started. And did 2 shows there. But I always wanted to get into the Middle East. So second I had a chance and the second I had a good show, I was at the Middle East nightclub. And I threw my first show with Royce the 5'9", Cunning Linguist, Tone Deaf, Juice, the battle rapper, and Jake the Snake, who JDS at the time was the local artist that opened up.
Really? That was your first show?
Yep. That was my first show.
Damn. So that was 2004.
Yep.
So it was always rap for you.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as promoting concerts go, I grew up in a rock era. I love classic rock. I love rock music. I love all types of music, but I just went gunning with hip hop from the age of like 12 on. Not that I gave up that other music, but hip hop became like the career. It was that was the industry I wanted to get into.
It's funny. I kind of have gone down a similar path at that point, but I kind of took over everything. Yeah, around 12, or maybe 16 around that time. But Royce was your first artist headlining.
At the time, Royce was in transition. So Royce was like, he wasn't really messing with Eminem and all those guys. He was kind of left on his own a little bit, and he was like strictly an underground artist. And he wasn't as big as he is now, or was with Eminem. So he was in like this little like kind of transitional phase. So it wasn't a sold out concert. It wasn't a huge show, but he was a legend already at that point. You know, and he was still working with DJ Premier and whatnot. So he had joints, but he didn't have the fan base that he has in the beginning or right now. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a gigantic show for a first time promoter at that point. It was great. It was a big show for me, but
Were you disappointed that there weren't many people at the show, or were you like, looking back now, I bet it's a cool like feeling, but like in the moment, were you like, God damn it?
yeah, as a promoter, you always want more people at your show. It didn't do as well as I thought it would do. Lost
Yeah.
a bit of money. But it was a great show. It was a great show.
I just threw my first rap and comedy show in Brooklyn, and
word.
it was actually very well attended. We sold it out. It was sold out, but I lost a lot of money on it in the end.
How does
But,
that
like,
happen?
It was
Usually,
a small-
that's
it was more
usually the promoter's
fancy.
favorite words. The promoter's favorite words is sold out. You don't usually associate losing money with sold out, but
It was a lot of see, I'm not a booker. I'm a comedian who threw my first show, so it was a lot of like giving out free tickets to fill out the room, and then like certain artists and stuff like that. And it ended up being a great show, but I understand, like, looking back at it, it's going to be a great memory, but in the moment, especially also performing on the show,
yeah, it's not
it's
easy.
booking's no longer a thing I'm going to try to be doing. I need that. You can't, it's hard to be the performer and the booker, I feel.
Yeah, and that was something I realized early, because I used to host a couple of the shows in the beginning, and just hosting was too much, because as a promoter, you got to run around, you got to deal with all this crap, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you really only have time for that, you know, because at the time I was stage managing as well. So it was like,
Oh, shit.
so I was like stage managing, hosting, and doing all the other stuff that goes around the show, and dealing with the artists coming in and out, and guest list, and all this other crap, hospitality. At that point, I was doing all of that. So, yeah, I mean, there was no room to host a show, so I let other people do it.
Had you ever been on stage before? Like, did you want to be a musician, or because hosting, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it wasn't like a dream of mine to do it. It was just something I did at the time. You know, I was like, I could do it. You know, I wasn't the greatest at it, and so it wasn't easy to pass that off. It wasn't something I was inspiring to be the host of the show. It was just something I kind of did for a minute there, but it was really short lived. Really short lived, because I just had other people that wanted to host. So I was like, all right, you guys do it. You know.
What made you get into it, like even study music, like the industry in college? Because,
well, it was, you know, where I'm from, you know, there was no music industry, you know, there wasn't really much of arts. There was bars and drinking and DJs. And I was a DJ first, really. I was a fan, then I was a DJ. And I was DJing in New Hampshire at the time. I was living in, you know, Concord, New Hampshire, you know, Sandown, New Hampshire, basically southern New Hampshire. And the DJing scene in the clubs was just kind of running its course. It was like, you know, you either played top 40 or hits, or you didn't really, you know, no one was moving around, you know. And that wasn't really the hip hop that I was into at that point. At that point, hip hop really starts to go underground, and the whole underground hip hop renaissance, they call it now, with Raucous Records, all these independent artists were starting to come out, 12-inch singles and stuff like that. So I was really more into that. Nobody really wants to dance to that. That's more like hip hop. That's more like a hip hop aesthetic, which has always been my thing versus entertaining. And so I got sick of playing Juvenile, Back That Ass Up, you know, every 4 times a night. So I was like, what's the next move? And the only thing I could think of is I got to learn what to do. So I had to go. I was like, well, you know, I looked into colleges in the area, and Northeastern had a music industry program. And my grandfather had went to Northeastern. So at the time, Northeastern it was a good fit, you know what I mean? And it wasn't super, it was expensive, but it wasn't super expensive for what it is now. At the time, it was pretty expensive, but it wasn't, you could get loans for it. And
Yeah.
it was realistic loans that you could pay off. And it put me in Boston. It put me in a city where I knew the music industry was going because I had gone to these concerts. And my boy, Peter Parker, was living in Boston. And he was telling me about the scene. So I knew that I needed to get into an area where stuff was going on. And school was going, Northeastern being that, was going to be that. So that's kind of what got me into that.
So then you study it. And so when did you graduate versus 2004 when you threw that first show or the first big show?
I graduated 2004, same year that I threw that show.
Oh, wow. Was there a scene
like I said,
going?
it was my last year of college. I was starting to promote concerts. So I was already starting to do that. I had already had the internship and I was working, promoting concerts my last year of college.
What did you study at community college?
Just business management.
Did you want to use it? Did you
originally I went in for accounting. I went to this small school, New Hampshire Technical Institute, NHTI. There's a bunch all over New Hampshire. The one I went to was in Concord, New Hampshire, because that one had dorms because I didn't want to stay back home. So I could go live there, get away. Because, back home was starting to wear thin on me at that time. So I just wanted a new experience. So originally I went for accounting because I was good at it in high school. But then once taxes came around, I was like, I got to get out of this. So
did you want to be a DJ? Was that in the back of your mind?
That came later. Yeah, I think I did. I got my first set of turntables at 19. I was second year in college.
Oh, so you were okay.
My second year was in my community college.
Yeah.
I was always a music enthusiast. And my boy, Peter Parker, was a DJ. So I had that ear and that taste. And I had been making mixtapes since I was a kid, when they were actually tapes. So it was the DJ was the progression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And DJ Premier was obviously my musical idol, and he's the greatest in my opinion. So I wanted to do it, and so I did that, and that's how that happened.
Do you miss it? Do you ever want to DJ again? Yeah.
No, I curate now. I'm a curator now. I have a playlist, and I do that because. And, even though I'm not doing transitions between songs, which I really miss mixing two records with similar BPMs together. I love that. That's what really made me want to DJ. But I will say that curating a playlist it's time consuming, but it's a little easier because when you made mixtapes, and I made a lot of mixtapes as a DJ, you put out the music. You put together all this time into making a mixtape, and then 2 weeks later, a bunch of new music comes out. You have to make another one, and the old one's kind of obsolete. So, just being able to update a playlist every week is better, because it keeps me fresh on top of the music, and I don't have to redo everything. I can just add and delete.
Yeah. But you got into it wanting to be on the stage. Not even, I don't know if you ever rapped or anything, but do you miss it? Do you ever want to go back and do a live show?
No, I never did live shows. I did dance nights DJing. So I don't miss that. I've rocked some parties. You know what I mean? I was able to rock a bunch of parties. That was cool. But that wasn't really 100% why I wanted to be a DJ. My whole point of DJ was to play good music that I liked. And I'm not trying to knock all commercial music, but I was playing a lot of stuff I didn't like just to get paid. And it was that's not why I'm doing this.
Right. But you probably are at a point now where you could do something where you play what you want.
Yeah, I think now if I was I went back to it and I was I started a night and could play something in a small little venue, where it's not where they're open, where there was an open, Boston has more open-minded to it. So it's more of a scene for that. But at that point, when I was back doing shows, being a promoter I didn't have time to DJ anymore.
Did you want to be a promoter? Was you said curating the list, but was curating shows? Because that lineup that you threw on your first show is insane. looking back at it now, people who missed out on that show are like, God, that's a great lineup. But like, were you always, you wanted to be the curator?
I did like curating lineups. I did like that for a while there. That was what I liked to do. Eventually it became into, I wasn't really, I couldn't really curate lineups anymore. It kind of like you had to do it a certain way. So that joy came away. But
Was
it
that
came
a
back
change in the industry, or was that a change in you being too busy?
It was a change in just the business plan, really, because I had to like book necessarily acts that I didn't necessarily, I had to book acts based on bringing people and selling tickets versus booking acts that I think creatively made more sense on the lineup. And that was an unfortunate trapping of the business that I fell into for years. Luckily, the last few years, and there's nothing against those artists that were on there. They were great and they helped support the scene, but it wasn't really, again, here I am doing something that I wasn't really loving doing because it really wasn't creatively what I wanted to do, but it was just what I had to do. But the last few years, I was able to get back to kind of like curating shows with the lineups that I wanted to put together.
How do you get out of that trap? Like when you get in that mindset where you're like, oh, it's all about the business, like it's then hard to find the art in it again.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to, I've been completely uninspired many a times. You know what I mean? Completely uninspired, like just kind of like going through the motions, doing what I do. But I have to find, sometimes you have to put effort into finding, ways to make it work so it is inspiring, or find inspiration in some form while maintaining a balance of paying the bills. So it's like, it's the art versus business all the time,
all the time.
And there's swings in that, you know what I mean? There's swings where things are really good, and then swing things where it's life, things are bad. And you go through all these, you live and you learn, and I got to keep learning, and the terrain has changed constantly. I mean,
totally.
Especially right now, the terrain is completely at change.
It's crazy now because I've gone to shows where I, not for nothing, thought they would be packed out, and they're not, or vice versa. And it's so strange because I still love going to shows. It is a completely different thing post quarantine shows.
Yeah, there's still a lot of hesitation out there.
Yeah,
and you have a bunch of there's a lot of controversy. The vaccine mandates, that's a controversial thing. There's Delta variant that still exists, so it causes hesitation of people being like, maybe I'll wait, let's see how this plays out, or maybe they'll go see the biggest favorite act that they want to go see, go see Dave Chappelle, but they might not go, they're not going to go see like a lot of those like middle acts or up and coming acts that they might eventually just go out on a night to go see. There'll be hesitation on those.
I know. I was really mad. I was supposed to go to the Middle East the other day to see Uncle John and Dash, and they didn't have, and Al Divino and they didn't have enough pre-sale tickets sold, so they canceled the show. And I was like, oh, that's not for nothing. I thought that was going to be packed out.
Yeah, and that's happening. You've seen that happen. You've seen shows, go up and then get canceled. And, and the bands are all postponing and doing all this other, they didn't, it's just a mess, man. You know what I mean?
Totally. Is it hard then being like, how are you adapting? How can you adapt to the situation?
Well, as a promoter, I kind of the beginning of 2020, the last couple of years as a promoter, I'm still a promoter, but I was working. I as a promoter, I transitioned into a talent buyer, booking agent for the Middle East, and then worked my way up into becoming eventually general manager of the Middle East talent buyer. In January 2020, I left that job. By March of 2020, COVID hits, wipes everything out. All shows are shut down. So at that point, I was kind of like, I'm not booking shows for a while. So I didn't. And I transitioned into becoming a digital marketer. So basically, I took the techniques that I've learned from promoting events and applied it to music, artists releasing music, and worked with artists to help push their videos, their new music, their releases, whatever they got going on. I applied all that. And I work with artists doing that. When shows started coming back last summer, the vaccine came out and everybody thought, hey, we're going back to work. It's going back to the way it's supposed to be. There was a rush of shows where I was helping book a couple things, but then all this controversy that I just said put everything on pause. So I'm not booking shows right now at all. I help, venues like the Middle East and the Palladium in Worcester. I help them promote their shows, but I'm not actually booking them myself. I'm not a booking agent or a talent buyer at the moment. I'm strictly helping people promote. So that's.
Do you miss it, or do you like this transition?
I don't miss, things are getting a little crazy there at the end because I actually worked in the Middle East. So I was getting a combination of internal craziness mixed with the other shows. After 17 years of doing it, or 16 years, whatever, 16, we'll just say 17. If I'm done, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, I miss a good show when it does well. I miss all the goodness about it. But like we just talked about, it's very stressful. I don't miss all that. You know what I mean? I don't miss negotiating prices with artists on debating what they're worth, especially in these times where it's lower. They're going to, there's a lot of bite back on that. I don't miss negotiating money. I don't miss the stress of worrying about a show doing well, taking on that financial burden, and the running of an event. Sometimes when it's hectic, some events are really easy to run. Some events are really hard. So I don't miss the negative sides. Hey, do I miss walking into a venue that I promoted and shows sold out? Everyone's having a good time telling me how great the show is and the performer kills it. Of course I miss that. But it's not always that.
Yeah.
So
most of the times it's probably not.
There's more stress than there is that.
Yeah. Did that ruin the music for you?
Yeah, of course. When you make your passion your job, the passion kind of goes away a little bit. That's normal. I think that's normal for any trade where you're like, you're doing it so much that it's a job, right? And it's not as exciting at that point. I mean, there were many shows that I booked that I was like, I didn't even watch. I was up in the office doing paperwork. So I was like, yeah, it got to that point.
Do you still feel that taking a step away? Or are you kind of like, that's a past life? Or,
I liked booking a good show, booking it, bang. I can leave everything else. I miss I booked a dope show. I miss that feeling. But I hate to say it, but eventually when you start watching so many shows, they all start to look the same. You see the same techniques used, especially with hip hop. It's like a lot of people recycle the same moves. The quality of performances went down. I will say that.
I agree.
The attendance might have been better and the energy's still there, but the quality of performances went down.
I mean, I watched
with the rapping over your lyrics
at the basement of the Middle East, just count cash and drink from a bottle of codeine while the Hood Rich Pablo Juan.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that. No.
Yeah, no, and I like his music, but I understand that the quality of performances did dip for a long time. I feel like I like it now with Griselda, and there's definitely some good performances now.
Yeah, we did Griselda a bunch of times at the Middle East, and those are great shows. And there were a lot of good times over the years that made it worth it. You know what I mean? But as you get older, eventually, in the way the business was going and where it was going at the time, it wasn't worth the stress anymore. So if I can say now that if I never booked another show, I'm okay with that because I did it for 17 years. So
with
Most
what you're
promoters don't last
saying,
that long.
yeah,
What?
with what you're saying, I guess like I don't know. I'm at the beginning stages of entering the business, and it's starting to
Cool.
go well. You know, it's starting to take off, and I of course it's a completely different thing. But what advice do you give? Because I do want to like keep the passion, especially because I'm taught like everything I do is like people can see. So if I lose a passion in a conversation, someone's gonna tell that. Hey guys, this episode is sponsored by the podcast Woody Two Shoes, hosted by comedian Thatcher Wood. Other than being a really good friend, Thatcher is one of the funniest comedians and podcasters I know. Woody Two Shoes is available on all podcast platforms. It's a comedic podcast where he interviews a different interesting person each week, and they get into a bunch of different topics. You should subscribe to his YouTube channel too. At 100 subscribers, he's giving away merch. At 500 subscribers, he's giving away a PS5. That's right. Yeah, a PS5. So make sure you go subscribe to Woody Two Shoes on YouTube and follow Thatcher on Instagram at Wood Two Shoes. 2 is in the number. Wood Two Shoes on Instagram. Let's get back into it.
Are you trying to be a promoter, or you're just trying to be the comedian?
I'm not a promoter. That's what I mean.
So you're asking me for
everything
advice on being in what you want my recommendation on being a comedian?
No, but I'm a comedian, but I'm interviewing in the rap world. Like that is advice of not losing your passion going into an industry. It doesn't have to be
Right. No, I hear you. Balance, you know. The key to success is consistency. I became by default one of the bigger ones, independent promoters, only because I did so much. I just kept doing. I didn't stop. You just kept seeing my name, Leedz Edutainment Presents. My banner was up at every shows. People got to know me that way, you know. That the consistency and persistence and hard work is really the key to, you hear it all the time, but that was really what happened.
That's good to hear, because I do 3 episodes a week now, but I don't want to burn myself out, you know?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, you gotta, for years it was like all work, no play, you don't want to do it too much that consumes you, that don't enjoy it anymore. I made enough money at that time to be able to do that, and the options were limited. But especially but I wasn't a performer. So a performer, you have to. It's a whole different animal.
I know. Well, that's why. Not that I get like it's too bad that, but you also dealing with an artist negotiating price right there probably ruins 90% of it. Like that just seems so stressful, and I don't think people who book shows or want to book shows even realize telling someone their worth is a hard thing to do.
Well, luckily most of the times I didn't have to talk to the artists themselves. I had to talk to their agent, but they're trying to get as much money as they can. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to not lose. I'm trying to negotiate so I don't lose money, but still get the show because I want the show. So that's really, that's the name of the game right there, is finding that, finding the number that works. And that's the trickiest part about being a promoter, is trying to gauge what an artist is worth and how many people are going to come out. So because if you overbid it, you're going to lose money, and if you underbid it, you don't get the show, and you don't make any money. So and then you got and then in the music business, there's a lot of financial insecurity flying around because no one's making enough money. So it's so much stress on that process, and venue is a tough business too. Being a music venue is tough. To survive. Never mind in these times, and it's. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress, and I don't miss that at all. Anytime you throw money into the mix, it's going to cause, in a financially insecure business, it's going to cause problems. and it's going to cause arguments, and it's going to trigger fear in people. And it did. There was an understanding for a while. I mean, I was good at it for a while, but you get into these same arguments all the time with people, and it wears on you.
100%. I couldn't imagine that. No, I couldn't imagine the stress.
So that part's tough. And then, like, let's say the show's not doing, you could, all right, so-and-so sold out last show. This show should sell out, right? The next time he plays, it should sell out. Maybe it doesn't. So then you got an offer that based on this last sold out play, and then next time around, for whatever reason, people aren't buying tickets this time around. So now you got this whole stress on your brain of like, oh, this show's going to lose money. And that's a whole nother animal, because now you're like, oh God, and if you're independent, that's coming out of your pocket. So you carry that around with you.
Yeah.
Luckily I won more than I lost, but still that whole losing process ruins the whole show. Like, it ruins the whole, like, oh, I don't even care about. Now you almost it's tough to shut off that animosity towards the event now because you lost money on it. Even 100. Though it still could be a good show, because, the performer's just looking to entertain the people, or, connect with the people that are there. And, I've been to great shows where there's been 10 people in the crowd. It's been awesome. But if it's your money on the line, you're like, this show sucks.
Yeah. And then it would be hard to like not take it out on the artist. There's so many different venues in Boston. Is that like another piece to it, or do they work pretty much symbiotically?
Well, it's that was another challenge. There wasn't many independent venues for me to work out of. I worked out of the Middle East, which was legendary venue. I was coming into a legendary venue, doing shows that with a huge history of doing underground hip hop shows. So I mean, I was able to fit in there. But I didn't really have many other options of where I could go in Boston. There was a lot of smaller venues around, but bigger, I had no other options because they were run by Live Nation and AEG, which are big commercial companies, and they don't really work with independent promoters. They book everything themselves. And I became working at the Middle East and being, a talent buyer. I was competing with them. So, there was a whole competitive thing there going on. So I wasn't really allowed. I mean, I did some shows with them in the beginning, but then it became, strong now. So I grew to Worcester Palladium. I've done some shows. I've done some big sold out shows there.
That's a great venue. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was in Worcester. So it was hard to convince people to play there versus Boston House of Blues. It was, or Paradise Rock Club, so.
I love when people go to Worcester or Providence and they go, "What's up, Boston?" when they're on stage.
Well, they're pulling a lot of people from Boston.
No, I know. But you know what?
They should say New England.
Exactly, yeah. Or even the Xfinity Center in Mansfield, they'll do that. They'll say, "What's up, Boston?" Like, we're not in Boston. We're about 40 minutes away. Yeah,
I mean, we've kind of categorize New England music scene to just Boston a lot of times, and I've always been trying to add them into, and I've done it myself, but nowadays I just say New England music scene.
Yeah, that's so much
because Boston's the hub, but not everybody's from Boston or goes to Boston and can afford Boston. So it's like, and there's a lot of talented people outside of that, myself included, that I lived in Boston for 20 years though. So, I mean, but I got in early when it was still like, you could afford to live there, but it was, but New England in general, in order to flourish, needs to stand as all of New England, because the smaller areas like, Fitchburg or, Southern New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, these are, there's all scenes there. So I just throw it all. It's all New England.
Yeah, I agree.
You kind of need everybody, because when you do a show in Boston, 50 miles outside of Boston is Worcester, Southern New Hampshire, Providence, Rhode Island, everything there in between. That's not just Boston. No. That's totally a whole area that's coming. I was living in Southern New Hampshire, going to Boston to see shows. I wouldn't call myself a Bostonian I wouldn't
No,
say
I
that
drive
that's
to
the
Boston every
music.
single night from Fitchburg,
Yeah.
every day to
And I wouldn't
you know what
say-
I mean? But
I wouldn't say that that was just a Boston's music scene coming out. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
something to think about.
I don't know how. Do you listen to Griselda at all?
Sometimes, yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if you know this, but the Middle East shows, the early ones, they consider that the when they really knew that they were next, when they really knew that something was different, was at those shows. When
Yeah, because
Conway said that.
yeah, well, thank you for noticing that. Middle East is for underground hip hop in the United States is probably one of the best venues for it. It is always in this area has always supported that sound and that Griselda does. So yeah, I mean, I did those shows. I promoted the early Griselda shows at West Side Gun. I didn't do it. West Side Gun played the Middle East solo once. A different promoter did it. I ended up helping book it, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
You were always
Perfect
into
sense.
that underground hip hop though. So
Yeah.
that works, finding that.
Yeah.
Because the Middle East does. I mean, I've seen some of the best. I just saw Rome Streets there like a month or two ago, and that was one of the best shows I'd ever seen.
Yeah. There's a long history of those shows at the Middle East in the last 20 plus years. Since underground hip hop became a thing. It's been a huge part because before then, like concerts were like, first of all, Boston really wasn't doing hip hop concerts at all in the 90s. It was just kind of had a bad stigma to it, and the venues wouldn't do it. So late 90s, Metro Concepts and a few other promoters, shout out Detention, Metro Concepts, Governor Pete, Diff, started throwing these shows at the Middle East, and Cambridge was open to it. And that's what's been going on since then.
What do you see as your do you like the digital marketing? Like, what do you want to take a step away, moving into other things? Like, what do you see as your next chapter?
Well, it's tough. It's tough to navigate the next chapter under a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's I do odds and ends jobs. I'm also
pre-pandemic. What did you think your next chapter was going to be?
I don't know. Even at that point. At that point, I was, I took it as far as I could in the live the venue aspect. You know what I mean? I went because I made a transition from being like promoter. I was still doing it, but I was going more in the venue world. Because I went talent buyer up to general manager. I thought that was the next step, as I would open my own venue and do all this stuff. But I learned pretty quick how crazy and chaotic that business was. It wasn't really something that I wanted to do. So at that point, when I was like, okay, now I don't want to do that. What's the next move? Boom, COVID. And now it's just kind of like seeing what the situation is. I can't fully navigate this terrain right now. It's just kind of, I do miscellaneous jobs. I drive, I deliver food, digital marketing, whatever, to pay the bills. Because I don't really want to go back to the concert business right now, and nor do I think I want to, because it's just so crazy right now. I just don't really want that stress and chaos in my life. And so I'm just trying to figure out what it is.
Do you look back at it with animosity, or do you look back at it as like a good learning experience?
No, it was way more good than bad. Way more good. Even as crazy as it got at the end, more good than bad. I was lucky. I was blessed. You know what I mean? To have that years of experience and be able to take it as far as I took it as far as I could. If they were under different situations and different clients, I could have gone a lot farther. But there was things I couldn't control there. Did I make a lot of mistakes? Of course. But I think I've learned from most of them. So I don't try to make those mistakes again. But no animosity, no animosity towards what happened, like I said, if I'd never do another show again, I had a good run.
And you started a podcast too, right?
Yeah. I've done my own podcast. I've done about 44, 45 episodes over the last year. I've just kind of tried to put myself out there, and do, as a person, because everyone's like Leedz Edutainment's a company. Yeah, I understand, and my boy Peter Parker was like, you got to put your face out there more because they just think it's just a company, and
Yeah, I didn't know it was just you, honestly.
Yeah,
Like I'm happy
yeah,
I've been to so many of your events. I didn't know
Yeah.
if it was like it's cool to get to talk to you.
Well, I had a team. I had my boy Jake Milo. He was stage managing for years. He was a really great guy. Still is. He's in a different field now, but I did have a team. I had numerous people intern for me and work for me. And in working with the Middle East, it was kind of a team effort there, their staff and me. But yeah, pretty much a one-man operation other than that.
That's Did you ever want to did you always want to stay independent? Did you never want to, I don't know.
I wanted to stay independent, you're working for corporations, never really was a thing I did, like, you know what I mean? Like I had a couple desk jobs, my early 20s I hated. So I was like, the idea of that was a little nuts, but I'm not really a sit still type of guy.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to, I'm not trying to bash the competition, but I didn't really want to work for them because they were the competition. I didn't necessarily agree with how they did things, treated people. So that really, and I kind of burnt a bridge there competing.
Yeah.
So it was like, that wasn't really an option. And I loved the Middle East. I did for years. I thought that this was this unique place of artistry and center of the arts district in Cambridge, where everybody was diverse. It was a diverse place. Everybody was welcome. And, I thought that, hey, I was happy working there. Until
but you also had to manage a restaurant, which is
I didn't really do much of the restaurant.
Oh, okay, that's good. I thought
the owner did that. I did the venue.
Everything.
I did the venue side of things.
Well, that's at least. I was sitting here being like, if there was a complaint on an order, you had to leave the concert to go talk to
No.
Okay, that's
basically, it was a general manager intermin thing. One of the owners had to step away, and I kind of came in and managed, kind of just helped steer the ship.
Yeah.
I didn't do all the minutia, but I oversaw the booking, and I worked with human resources, and I worked with some trying to do some other implementing stuff to try to help bring in more business. But family businesses are complicated. If you've ever worked in one, you'll understand.
100%. That's why when you said you stepped into that role this whole time, I was like, man, that's a different thing.
No, I didn't. One of the owners handled the restaurant because that wasn't my strong point.
But even being a manager of a venue is very different than like booking shows at a venue. There's a lot more problems because you still have to.
You got to deal with employees. You got to deal with employees and their issues and stuff that goes down with employees. In a place like the Middle East, there's always something going down. Yeah, there's always something with that place.
That just
there's
so stressful. But someone's job. Like when you go to a show, you have to realize someone's but that just does not seem like something I would want to do.
It's what I thought was the trend. I thought it was the transition of what I was supposed to do. You go from independent promoter to talent buyer to floor manager to general manager, right? Like that's what you're supposed to do. Like I thought, because I couldn't really go anywhere else, I was thinking I was either going to work there or open my own place. So I wanted that experience, and I sunk my teeth into it. It just, it was just the nature of the business and where it was going, and in the city of Boston, and how the competition and all this other stuff was happening, and it just was too much.
Yeah,
for any human being.
Yeah,
I can handle a lot of stress. I've been doing it for a long time, and that was like, whoa. So the bottom line is it's a tough business model. A live music venue is a tough business model, unless you've got deep pockets to handle the crazy swings of it. Good luck.
Is that what happens then? Like a company like Live Nation steps in and it takes away the like not mom, but it takes away the like more independent for the.
I can't say on what they do, but I will say
I didn't mean to call them out, but you know what I mean. A big company steps in and takes over what was an independent thing.
When you have a massive national corporation, two in the city, it's hard to compete against them. They have deeper pockets. They can bid more. They can put more money into the rooms to make them nicer. There's just a lot more connections nationwide. They can book tours nationwide versus you're independent. You're just one city. It's just tough to go against them. It's tough to go against that. It's hard to say my room's better at that point, or there's more upside that you should play the Middle East other than this.
But it's a feel. It is a feel. Like there's a reason that like.
Right. But there was a shift. There was a shift of artists want to play newer rooms, like the Sinclair's was a newer room. They want to go play the newer room. Bright Music Hall, which was first, when I was here, was Harper's Ferry, was an independent room. But then that got bought out. That became a Live Nation room. And that was a newer room. So, with a very hungry talent buyer that used to intern for me, that was tough too, competing against him. And it was, it was just a lot of changing factors in the Middle East. It's hard to keep up, and it was an old dirty rock club.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of nostalgia around that. And there's a lot of history around that, and you can't take anything away from that. But the people kind of wanted to gravitate towards the newer and, the new lights and the new sound, and the crazy hospitality. It's just, the Middle East couldn't match that. So it was tough to compete with that, and then the deeper pockets for to pay the artists couldn't match that either sometimes.
But that's what's kind of happening in all industries is the kind of the money takes over. That's
capitalism for you.
Yeah.
And you can complain about it all day, but that's how it is. You can have a perfectly good business right here. It's doing very well. And then someone could just say, hey, I want to open up a business across the street doing the same thing and just find a way to undercut you. And there ain't much you can do about it. And that's the nature of business. So it's like, I can sit here and complain about it. I try to vote for things that don't, a certain way, but it's like at the end of the day, I don't have that much control over it. That's the way things are. And there's upside to that, but what I just said was the downside to that.
Right, but that's good that you can now put yourself out there because you have things to say, and if you have an opinion on something, then at least it's not like you don't have at least a little bit of a base. You can start not talking and teaching that stuff.
Businesses evolve, venues have runs, people have runs. You're lucky the time you have.
Every empire falls. Yeah, I get it.
The empire might fall. Who knows? All these big venues I talked about, I wouldn't want to be in right now. I wouldn't want to be a big venue with all these assets in a pandemic. I wouldn't want that.
Well, can I be like, you don't work for these venues, so I can be frank with this. Like at the House of Blues, I've been kicked out for smoking before. I've never been kicked out of the Middle East for smoking. And that's whatever. But it is like when you have a big company, they run it like a corporate company, and it's less of a whatever. It's run like a business. It's not run as like all right, we understand that you're a fan of the music and some things might happen because you're a fan of that music.
Yeah. Trust me, people have been kicked out of the Middle East for smoking weed. I've seen it. Maybe not as frequently as the House of Blues, but
Yeah. I hope I don't get singled out now if I ever go to a show.
They don't care.
No, but there is a definite feel. It is.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just
don't have anything to say.
No, I don't have anything to say either. Why did you start the podcast? Why did you want to put your face out there?
Because it made sense. Because what I noticed is there was like a lot of promotions companies on the internet trying to sell all these like crazy services, like, you know, like 1,000 followers for $20, and all these marketing things that I legitimately, I don't, I do digital marketing, but I'm not selling followers and stuff like that. I'm helping you try to reach the right people, and you can do that really well these days with the techniques that I've learned. But I needed to give a face out there because I needed to personalize it to separate from those other companies. So the podcast, obviously, podcasters, as we're doing this right now, are pretty popular.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, I could do it. I knew a lot of people. I figured, okay, I'll just start interviewing people. And to be honest, I get the best feedback. People watch those interviews and they tell me they really like them. I get good feedback from that a lot.
What's your favorite one? Like, oh, I want to go back and listen to a full one.
It's tough to say.
I know. If someone asked me that would be a tough question. Or just
people ask me what my favorite show is on my favorite podcast. I mean, to be honest, they're all good. I mean, you're a comedian, so I had a good one with this guy, Detention. He's a real funny guy. He's from
okay.
That was a pretty funny one. I haven't interviewed any comedians yet, but I will. But yeah, I mean, see if you recognize any names on there and watch those ones. It's very New England based. I do interview national artists, obviously outside of New England, but most of the time, it's New England based.
Yeah. Do you like doing it? You feel like you like putting your, because it's scary to put yourself out there as an entity, as a person.
Yeah, I totally get that. I totally understand, like, as being a performer and having to perform all the time and having that expectancy on you. I try to remove that. I try to remove that when I'm doing the podcast. I'm just like, I'm me. It's going to be me. Take it or leave it. If you don't like me, fine. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's like, I'm just at this stage of the game, I'm pretty comfortable with who I am at 40. So I'm just like, it is what it is. We're going to have a normal conversation. I'm going to be me, you be you. It's going to be truthful. It's going to be real. We're going to get a couple laughs. We're going to tell a good story. And that's really what it is. I do it more for enjoyment and connecting with people, especially when I can't connect with people like I used to. Being able to go out and stuff like that, So I like the one-on-one conversations. I think that's good. I think people like that too because it feels real. Yeah,
that's why I do it. And you were talking about the beginning. That goes back to the just putting in as much work as possible. I honestly didn't think this podcast would take off the way it did. I started during quarantine and everyone was like, don't start a podcast during quarantine. Like, everyone's doing that. And I just wanted to, I started having conversations with people I wanted to have conversations with. And there's so many people I want to have conversations with that has now grown to 3 podcasts a week. So it's and I just keep doing, I just want to put, and I think that is why it's starting to take off, is because I don't care who listens. I just am putting out all these cool conversations. Like, I don't know if you still stay with the underground rap scene, but I got Crime Apple coming on this week. I have Conway coming on next week. It'll
really?
be yeah.
My favorite in that whole world is Ransom.
Oh, I love Ransom. He's so good.
He's the best. He's the best in that whole world, in my opinion. I should say best because that could piss somebody off. But I would say he's my favorite. Lyrically, he's my favorite.
No, his new album with Rome Streets is so good.
I just think he's he's the best combination of street rapper with intelligence. And
his lyrics are insane. Some of the things that he's I can't even.
He's very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah. Man, thank you so much for coming on. It was an honor, and hopefully we get to meet in person someday.
Yeah. Well, good luck with everything you got going on. You know what I mean? Comedy's a tough market. I have friends that are comedians. Shout out my boy Josh Day. I don't know. Do you know Josh Day?
Yeah, I know Josh Day.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. Grew up with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he used to run the comedy night at the Middle East, and it's a tough racket. So
it is. It's a really tough. Yeah, I'm trying to figure all that because I was just getting booked around the city enough, and then when the podcast took off, it more is I have to figure out how to do this whole market by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay at it, man. Keep it going, man. Keep doing what you like, but also, pay those bills.
Yeah, and enjoy it. And enjoy it. Oh,
Yeah.
where can people find your stuff just before we wrap
Yeah, you can
up?
check me out on Leedz, Leedz. That's with Leedz with a Z. Edutainment.com. My handles are at Leedz edu. So yeah, hit me up if anybody needs any help promoting me, promote whatever, rap, comedy, whatever it is. We can figure out a way to digitally market it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time and for being on. I appreciate it.
All right, bro.